Hello, everyone, and again, happy Earth Day. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is Trash Driving Alone, Reduce, Reuse, and Recycle Tips. My name is Julie Quinn from Transaction, and joining me to facilitate today's webinar are Kelly Marsacci and Sophia Gallimore. This webinar is brought to you by Transaction Associates, manager of your workplace or residential building commuter services program. We are a full service transportation company managing transportation management associations or TMAs, as well as providing private companies and organizations with commuting programs and benefits. It is our mission to promote green transportation and to help commuters choose the modes that reduce driving alone habits and to benefit our environment. Our presenters for today's webinar are Neil Reen, founder and executive director of Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, and Erin Victor, environmental analyst and reuse specialist with Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. With today being Earth Day, what a better time to learn about what happens to trash and recyclables in Massachusetts. Neil will help us identify what can be recycled and what should not be. And then Erin will give us an overview of the MassDEP's innovative RecycleSmartMA education program. This webinar is being recorded, and after the presentations, there will be time for questions. Please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen to submit any questions, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. So with that, I welcome our first speaker, Neil Reen, to give us some great tips about recycling in Massachusetts. There you go. Okay. Thanks, Neil.
Thank you, Julie. One thing we forgot to mention is how to pronounce my last name. So it's Neil Reen. So thank you. No
Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. You had 50-50 odds of being right. So thank you, everyone. Welcome. Happy Earth Day, a cold, windy Earth Day. So today, we're going to talk some trash. Literally, we're going to talk about what happens when you throw something in a trash bin or a recycling bin. And we're going to start at kind of a global level. Then we'll talk about how we deal with things here in Massachusetts. And then we'll talk more on a personal level, what we can all do, small changes we can make to help protect our planet and reduce some of the problems we have with all this trash and recycling. So with that said, I'm going to launch right into my presentation. Share my screen. Always the most difficult part of every Zoom presentation. All right, there we go.
That's perfect.
All right, terrific. All right, so launching right into things here. So this picture here really kind of epitomizes the challenge we have worldwide with consumer packaging. So here we have a product that comes with its own packaging, otherwise known as the banana peel. But we feel compelled in this case to wrap it in cellophane and styrofoam and slap an organic sticker on it. And you see examples of like this, every time you go to the supermarket, virtually everything we buy is now wrapped or packaged in plastic, including cucumbers, things that in the past would never have had any plastic, but I don't know what's going on now, but it's out of control. And after you make your purchase in many communities, they'll want to bag your stuff in a plastic bag as well. So as a result of all this plastic and consumer packaging, we've got, images like this around the world where, the planet is just being overwhelmed by the volume of trash and plastic. And you got to remember that whatever we generate here on Earth generally stays here on Earth in one form or another, whether it's ends up in a landfill, in an incinerator, or just in our oceans and washing up on beaches. So today we've got roughly a garbage truck's worth of plastic entering our oceans every minute of every day. And scientists have estimated that by 2050, we'll have more plastic in our oceans than fish when measured by weight. And some people will point to other countries as, some places in Southeast Asia, some other developing countries as, as the root cause of this problem when it comes to ocean plastic. And there is some validity to that. Some of these countries don't have the infrastructure in place to deal with all this consumer waste. But let's not forget that here in the US, we are a major contributor as well. We are about 4% of the world's population, and we generate about 17% of the world's plastic. So we're certainly contributing to this problem. And like I said, much of this plastic ends up in the ocean. So I'm going to kick off our first poll here and ask you to answer this question if you want to take a few seconds here. So according to the Ocean Conservancy, what's the most frequently found piece of litter during your annual beach cleanups? And this is based on the 2019 International Coastal Cleanup, which is a worldwide cleanup. So it's not just the US. All right, we'll give it another 5 seconds or so. All right, I'm going to shut it down now and share the results. So let's see what we got. Number one answer was plastic water bottles, which is a good guess, but incorrect. Surprisingly, for 2019, the number one answer, it was food wrappers. So that, I think, might be a bigger problem in other places around the world. I would say here in the US, it's more likely to be these plastic bottles and bags. Typically, cigarette butts has been the number one answer year after year. But the bigger point here is that these are all problems. Whether it's number one, number two, or three really doesn't matter. The bigger point is that we've just got too much trash, and it's really ruining our oceans. And then there's obviously, an impact on wildlife for all this. So we've got marine animals washing up dead on beaches around the world. When they open up their stomachs to see, what's causing this, what caused their death. In this case, it was 80 plastic bags, you can kind of see in that photo. And that's a common occurrence. These animals are ingesting a lot of plastic. And even the seabirds, this is off of Midway Island, 1,300 miles away from Hawaii. So no human beings really living anywhere near this place, but there's plastic on those beaches, plastic floating in the ocean. These birds mistake bottle caps and things like that for food. They eat it, and then it makes them feel full because they can't digest it, and eventually they starve to death. So sadly, this is happening in many places around the world. This is an albatross, I believe. Then there was a viral video a couple of years ago of a poor sea turtle with a straw stuck in its nostril. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that if you like to eat fish, there's a good chance you're eating microplastics. So many of us have probably heard of something called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So what that is kind of a highly concentrated area that's huge. I mean, it's bigger than Texas, of trash and microplastics. But it's not, you might envision like a floating island of trash, but it's really like a minestrone soup, and it's made up primarily of microplastics. So when a larger piece of plastic enters the ocean, like a plastic water bottle, it breaks down into smaller pieces eventually. And eventually, the fish are ingesting those pieces, as you can see here in this photo, and we are ingesting the fish. So, this plastic has entered the food chain, and they've even done studies of sea salt, and they find most samples of sea salt have traces of plastic in it. So, and then when we look, just a reminder as far as, we like to say here in the US, just throw it away. There is no place called away. And sadly, in certain places around planet Earth, this is how people are living. Fortunately, we don't see this here in Massachusetts. Not that we don't see trash washing up on our beaches, but not to this extent. And then when we look forward, unfortunately, when it comes to the issue of plastic waste, the trend is not our friend. So the portion you see here in yellow shows where plastic production is due to go over the next 35 years. And you need to keep in mind that, we didn't have wide scale production of plastic until the 1950s. And today, only about 9% of that is getting recycled. And the rest is ending up in landfills, incinerators, or in our oceans. So unless we really start addressing this issue, I'm not sure it's going to get better in the short term. All right, so let's talk a little bit about just taking it down to the Massachusetts level, and what do we actually do with our trash here? So I'm going to ask you to another poll question and see what you think is actually happening. We have a little, that word there is supposed to be it's. So where does our trash in Massachusetts go after we collect it? So, you throw something in the trash and it goes away, but where? I'll give it another 5 seconds. Okay, let's see what we got here. 56% say 60% goes to incinerators, 20% to mass landfills, and 20% shipped out of state. And you 56% are correct. So very good. You get an A+ on Earth Day. No one guessed that it simply goes away. So that's always encouraging. So let's just talk a little bit more about these options of what we're doing with it here. So here we have a waste to energy plant. This happens to be in Millbury, Mass. And this is where, like we just indicated, about 60% of our municipal solid waste is going. And when these facilities were first launched in, around the early 1980s, I believe, seemed like, wow, this is the answer to all of our solid waste problems, right? We'll burn the trash and we'll generate electricity. But as with all these choices, there are trade-offs. And in this case, you've got, emissions coming out of that smokestack that, while they are highly regulated and scrubbed, it's basically impossible to make that clean, 100% clean. So when they do tests of the water and soil around these plants, they sometimes find higher levels of mercury and other carcinogens. And then you also have to keep in mind, after you burn all that trash, you've got this toxic ash that needs to go to an ash landfill. So it's not like it just disappears. So for those reasons and many others, we currently have a moratorium on the construction of any new plants here in Massachusetts. And even if they did want to lift that moratorium, if they came to your community and said, hey, we're going to build a waste to energy plant down the street from your home, most people, wouldn't be too thrilled about that idea. So right now we're not adding any capacity here. Now, the other way we deal with trash in state is 20% is going to landfills. And, just to define a landfill, really, it's not too sophisticated of an idea. It's just basically the way we've been dealing with trash since the days of the cavemen. So, we dig a hole in the ground, we dump our trash, and we cover it with dirt and rinse and repeat until what started out as a hole in the ground turns into a mountain of trash. And eventually, landfills are capped or closed. So, and that's happening around the state. We had more than 300 landfills in Massachusetts in the 1980s, many of which were like smaller local dumps. And today we're down to 6 in the entire state. And those are located in Haverhill, Millbury, North Andover, Pittsfield, Rochester, Springfield, and Saugus. And this map actually shows you exactly where all these facilities are, including the waste to energy plants. And one thing to note is that, especially when it comes to waste to energy, about 6 out of the 7 are in what are known as environmental justice communities or adjacent to environmental justice communities. So we don't tend to build these facilities in more well-to-do communities. And the other thing to keep in mind when it comes to the landfills is just there are trade-offs. So if you live near one, there's truck traffic, there's odors, and then 2 big issues are that all that rotting trash is emitting methane, which is a greenhouse gas. It's actually worse than carbon dioxide, contributing to climate change. And then you've got leachate. So a lot of toxic chemicals mixed in with all that trash, and that can wash through when it rains and snows into the ground water nearby. So for that reason, we're not building any new landfills. And like I said, there are 6 left, and by 2030, they are all forecast to be closed unless we, expand them. And then the other 20% was mentioned earlier is currently going out of state to as far away. It goes to New Hampshire, goes to Ohio, South Carolina. So as you can imagine, that's a very expensive way to deal with trash, and it's probably only going to get more expensive. And when these landfills close in Massachusetts, probably more will go out of state. All right, so let's talk, just shift gears a little bit here and talk about what's actually in our trash. And this is based on a study that MassDEP did of what's going to our incinerators. And roughly 26%, excuse me, is organics or food waste. So that's a big piece of the pie, as you can see, and an expensive piece of the pie, because when you think about it, we pay for trash removal, you pay by the ton. So it's food waste tends to be the kind of heaviest component of the trash. So it's costing us money, never mind the fact that maybe we're wasting too much food to begin with, which is a waste of money as well. So, just as far as what we can all do, I know the state is working on a new solid waste master plan, really trying to focus on this issue of food waste and how can we reduce it. One way is to increase composting. So get it out of the waste stream, have people at homes doing, backyard composting. And then for large businesses that create large volumes of composting, they're already required to compost if they create a ton or more per week. But I believe that may be reduced soon to half a ton, excuse me. So, this is definitely an area of focus we all of us can work on to try to reduce the volume of trash that we're throwing away. Okay, so I've talked briefly about landfilling, waste to energy, composting. Now we're going to talk about the three traditional R's that I'm sure most of you are familiar with: reduce, reuse, recycle. So let's talk about the third R, recycling, which, just to define the term, means to convert waste into reusable material. So for some people, you might think of it as, I put my water bottle in the bin, so I recycled, and that's part of the puzzle, but that's only the beginning part. So in an ideal world, this is how the recycling life cycle should work. So you, the consumer, you've got your plastic water bottle. You throw it in a recycling bin. It is then collected and taken to a material recycling facility. And that's where they sort all the materials, and they separate them and then combine them into, like in the case of plastic water bottles, into a giant bale, or think of a giant cube of PET plastic, which from there, there has to be a buyer. Just keep in mind, this is a business, and without anyone buying these materials, none of this would happen. So someone wants that material, it's then shipped to them, where it is shredded and washed and melted back down and processed back into new products. So it could be a new plastic water bottle, or it could be fabric for things like fleece jackets, and then you, the consumer, can buy that. So that's the ideal circular economy that we're all kind of striving for. Challenge we have, particularly with recycling, is, and that's how it should work in a perfect world, and we really don't live in a perfect world. I think we all know that. So one of the issues we have is I guess what I would call kind of recycling resistance, where some people either haven't been educated that they should recycle, or have heard the message but don't think it's worth doing. Maybe they've seen media reports that it's all ending up in the trash. So I want to just address that and mention, when you see national media reports, just keep in mind, there are differences from state to state. And here in Massachusetts, for the most part, when you put something in a recycling bin, it is going to be recycled, or if not, it'll be at least managed correctly. But again, on this issue of recycling resistance, you'll see it like if you go in a public venue, you'll see a trash barrel and a recycling bin side by side, clearly labeled, what goes in each bin. And yet when you look in the trash barrel, you'll often see plastic bottles right on top. It's kind of like the low-hanging fruit of recycling. And then you look in the recycling bin, you'll see food waste, banana peels, and so forth. So that, that's something that we need to overcome, is just to get people to recycle in the first place and then get them to recycle correctly. And this part is even more difficult. So, you know, the issue we have right now is that the state and really the country and the world is dealing with is recycling contamination. So, you know, contamination occurs when non-recyclables are mixed in with recyclables, or even when two different types of recycling get mixed together. Like if you've got broken glass mixed in with your paper, that's going to ruin the value of that paper. And a lot of this is due to the adoption of what most communities here in Massachusetts use, which is the single stream recycling system, where you have one bin where you put all your recyclables, and the recycling companies take it and they sort it on the back end and separate it. But you know, when recycling first started, you know, if you may recall, we each had separate bins, one for paper, one for plastic, one for glass, and so forth. And that kept things cleaner, but it was a little more work for the consumers. So the recycling companies rolled out single stream recycling to make it easier. But at the same time, it's created this bigger issue now of contamination. So on that issue of contamination, I'm going to ask for your thoughts on what do you think is the single most problematic item in our single stream system today? All right, give it another 5 seconds. All right, let's see how we did here. Number one answer was plastic bags and wrap. So you are correct again. Got a good audience today. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute as to why that's a problem. All these other items are also big problems as well. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, so like I said, you know, recycling is a dirty business here, and in an effort to clean it up, MassDEP a couple of years ago convened the various recycling companies, try to get them all on the same page. So they sat down and they came up with consistent answers to people's recycling questions. And trying to do away with this phenomenon you may have heard called wish cycling. So that's when you've got something that you want to dispose of. Hey, I've got this old phone and I want to throw it away. It's got some plastic on it. Yeah, it must be recyclable, right? I'll toss it in there and hope for the best. Well, that just creates more contamination. So this new website you see here, RecycleSmartMA.org, you can use whenever you're, we like to say, when in doubt, find out, or throw it out. So if you're not sure about something, you go to this website. There's more than 400 items in that database, and you'll get your answers. If you don't get an answer, it's not in the database, you can suggest that it be added. So they'll do the research and update the database. Like, for example, after COVID-19 hit, you know, things were added to the database like face masks and hand sanitizer bottles and gloves, as to what to do with those items. So this is always, you know, being updated as we go along here. And going on to that issue of the bags. So when we talked about, you correctly guessed that plastic bags and wrap are the biggest problem. If there's one message you want people to get for their recycling, it's do not bag your recyclables. Like some people put all their recycling into a garbage bag and put that in their bin. That's going to go straight into the trash in most cases. Or if you're just putting in loose pieces of plastic, and it's not just plastic bags, it can be things like, you know, saran wrap, over wrap. So if you buy, you know, a bundle of paper towels, it's got that wrap around it. None of that should go in your bin, because what happens is what you see here, it literally just tangles up the gears at the plant, and they've got to shut down and get in there and untangle that mess, which is time consuming and dangerous. So now keep in mind that you can still recycle those bags. At most supermarkets have a bin right out front, and it's not just shopping bags. So any kind of stretchy material or bag, you finish a loaf of bread that's in a bag. We keep a bin under our sink, and we just stuff all those bags, produce bags, all that stuff, and then bring it back to the supermarket. And that material is used to make things like Trex decking. So it's called film recycling, and that's something we should all be trying to do. But number one, keep it out of your single stream bin. So this image here is just kind of big picture from RecycleSmart about items you should recycle. So going across that top row, your metal, food, and beverage cans, just give them a quick rinse. They're good to go. Plastic is a little more challenging. We've got the various numbers, 1 through 7, and there's another one called Other. They all have the recycling emblem on them. Some of these are more recyclable than others, are more easily recyclable. But rather than having consumers try to figure out, what should go in, what shouldn't, the current guidance is just look at the shape. If it's a plastic bottle, jar, jug, or tub, put it in your bin and include the cap. If you attach the cap will get recycled. If it's loose, it's not going to get recycled because it's too small for the machinery. Glass, you can still recycle in most communities. And again, you can keep the lids on. Metal lids will be separated using magnets. And then paper and cardboard, for the most part, that's all recyclable, except for things like if a paper envelope has like bubble wrap on the inside, then that's not recyclable. And shredded paper is not recyclable in your single stream system. Okay, so on the bottom of this slide shows you the kind of the top offenders when it comes to contamination. So we've already covered the bags. And one other word on bags is, this whole long-standing debate, paper versus plastic, which one's worse or better for the environment? And I guess the answer really is neither. And the true answer is reusable bags. So try to use those. Most importantly, remember to bring them into the market with you, which is always the trickiest part. And you might, and wash them periodically. I know there was an issue when COVID hit that there was a ban on bag bans or ban on the use of reusable bags for a brief period of time, which really, frankly, wasn't based on any hard evidence. And that's since been rescinded, so you can use your reusable bags. That's the real simple thing that everybody can do. Other offenders are things like tanglers. So you want to keep out hoses, holiday lights, things that, just like the plastic bags, are going to gum up the works at the recycling plant. You want to keep it clean. So just, give your recyclables a quick rinse. You don't need to run things through the dishwasher or, use 20 gallons of water to clean out a jar. Just use, your best judgment here. And then textiles is currently about 6% of the waste stream, or what's ending up in landfills and incinerators. So that's something we definitely, kind of an easy thing to keep out. And so people are encouraged to donate those items, and you don't really necessarily have to worry about the condition. Some people say, oh, this shirt's got a hole in it, so I'm not going to donate it. If it's not wearable or saleable, it'll be turned into things like rags or incineration or insulation. So always donate those items, whether it's in a local donation bin. A lot of towns have a service called Simple Recycling, where it's weekly curbside pickup. I live in Mansfield, and we've got that program. It's very convenient. So don't throw this in your trash, and don't put it in your recycling bin either, because it's not recyclable through the single stream system. All right, so again, I mentioned RecycleSmart. That's the website. This example shows you, if someone put in, is this styrofoam egg carton recyclable? And you can see the answer is no. Put it in your trash. And just a word on styrofoam or polystyrene, just as a whole, is generally not. It is technically recyclable, but not in the single stream system. So unless you have a special drop-off center somewhere in your town, that should not go in your recycling bin. And then other harder to recycle, like bigger items, whether it's electronics or sporting goods or old furniture. Beyond the Bin is a great resource, so you can plug in the type of item you're trying to get rid of, and it will show you nearby places that will accept donations of that item. So this is another great way to just keep stuff out of our trash, landfills and incinerators. And also in some cases, you may have to pay to get rid of certain large items. This is a way that you can potentially get rid of things for free. And at the same time, you're helping someone else who might need that item. Another strategy is to use things like Facebook Marketplace or the Buy Nothing groups on Facebook, Craigslist, so forth. So just, don't default to just throwing these items in the trash. All right, again, for RecycleSmart, these are some of the places where you can follow them, their website. They publish a lot of great social media content. So if you follow them, you'll just get smarter and smarter when it comes to recycling. So I encourage you to do that. And then, I talked earlier about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. This model is kind of being expanded. In this case, we've got 5 R's. I've seen some that have 7 R's now, so we have R expansion. But the point being that recycling is, as you can see in this image, is really a small but important piece of the puzzle. So we want to get it right. But these other ways of addressing these challenges may be more effective in the long run. So things like reuse, or upcycling. So in example here, you've got an old cable spool that can be turned into a piece of furniture. And people get very creative with all kinds of things. There's a group on Facebook called Zero Waste Massachusetts, if you want to check it out. The people are avid zero waste people. They've got some great ideas. And then also just reducing. So things like, using a reusable water bottle instead of, single-use plastic bottle. Keeping a to-go bag in your car with a water bottle, a coffee mug, maybe some actual utensils. So when you go into a place that has plastic utensils and plastic everything, you can just avoid using those items. And one other thing you can do is on the reduce side is also if you're ordering takeout, where a lot of people are doing it these days, let the restaurant know if you're planning to eat this food at home that you don't need them to put plastic utensils in there or condiment packages. You've got those items at home, so you'll reduce waste, and you'll save the restaurants some money, which is a good thing. Keep them in business as well. Then there's kind of a bonus R I like to throw in here, which is just, refuse single-use plastic whenever you can. Let your local businesses know that you prefer more environmentally friendly options when you visit. If you order a drink, you can say, I don't need a straw with it. You can, ordering takeout, like I mentioned, you can let businesses, the restaurants know that these takeout containers that many of them are using are often, the bottom half is made out of black plastic, and black plastic is not recyclable in our system here in Massachusetts because the machines can't pick up the codes because it's a dark plastic on a black conveyor belt. So that's all going into the trash. So that's like a simple thing that could just reduce a lot of waste, is to either pick a color that's recyclable, or clear or a color, or use some other type of container that it isn't adding to that plastic waste problem that we have. We have a bunch of other ideas on our website at keepmassbeautiful.org. We've got, if you go to our blog, we have 2 recent posts with a whole bunch of ideas of things small changes you can make, like getting a toothbrush that's made out of bamboo instead of plastic, things like that. All right, so I'm in the last stretch here, talking about a different type of trash. So I told you we were going to talk about trash, and we're going to talk about litter, which, just to define litter, is basically anything that's not disposed of properly. And unfortunately, as you see here, our animal friends don't have this problem, but humans, just many of us have not gotten the message that we need to clean up after ourselves. And depending on your age, you may remember there were some public service ads back in the 70s so-called Crying Indian ad, and there were campaigns like Give a Hoot, Don't Pollute, Don't Be a Litter Bug. There was a lot of public messaging about, against littering and cleaning up. But that's kind of gone away, frankly. I don't know why. And today there's just a lot of people growing up or who have already grown up and just never got that basic message. All you got to do is take one look out your car window along any major highway, any suburban street, any city sidewalk, and you'll see what I mean by that. So I'm curious, I'm going to ask one last poll question about what you see in your community, depending on where you live. What's your biggest litter pet peeve as far as what you're seeing out there? Give it another 5 seconds here. We got high participation in this one. Okay, let's see. We got 89% participated. Number one answer, fast food trash. Interesting. Okay, so that's encompasses a lot of different companies. Number two, the nip litter. Yes. The nips are, just a problem across the state. These are all big problems across the state. I'm happy to see someone shares my disdain for portable teeth flossers, the floss and toss, I call it. That one's always a mystery to me that people are out flossing in public. But so these are all big problems. And at Keep Massachusetts Beautiful, I've got a couple programs, specifically focused on litter cleanup and litter prevention. Number one is the Great Massachusetts Cleanup, which is where we encourage every community in the state to organize a local community-wide cleanup in the spring and ideally as well in the fall. That's when the vegetation is down and it's easy to see and get at what's out there. So if you go to our website on our events calendar for this month, you'll see dozens of cleanups listed. So you can look and see if there's one in your community. There are many happening this weekend, Earth Day today, obviously. And you can join a local cleanup. We also have a guide and all kinds of resources if you want to be the person to organize a cleanup in your community, if you don't already have one. So that's one great way you can all participate. And we encourage you to do that. So that's ongoing right now. The other way, and this came about really, I guess you'd say one good thing to come out of COVID was, this time last year, all the spring cleanups were canceled. And I know where I live, I was seeing so many people out walking, just trying to get some fresh air and maintain their sanity. But tons of litter everywhere, especially PPE litter, masks, gloves, and so forth. But nobody cleaning it up. People just, so the idea was, well, let's try to make these walks a little more productive. So this mass litter cleanup crew program is really aimed at individuals or families to just incorporate litter cleanup into your daily walks, whether you're walking the dog or you're just going for a walk for exercise. So if you go to the website you see here, and you take the pledge, so to speak. So you say, all right, I'm going to keep, Elm Street in Winchester litter free, wherever it is. We will send you a litter cleanup kit that includes a litter grabber tool, a pair of rubber gloves, a reusable bag, and a nifty T-shirt that you can wear to show your pride in being part of the Massachusetts litter cleanup crew. So we kind of did a soft launch on this last summer, and in the last couple months, it's just taking off. We can barely keep up with the demand we're getting, but we've shipped over 600 kits so far. And, our goal is to get, thousands of people out there across the state, incorporating this into their routines. You can see I do that here with my dog, Pogo. He's a good helper. So collectively, we would be keeping Massachusetts beautiful if everyone kind of does their part. So again, you can sign up at that URL you see there. And just brief overview on Keep Mass Beautiful. If you're not familiar with us, we're a nonprofit launched in 2014. This is kind of our vision of Massachusetts, how things should look. We believe everyone deserves to live in a clean, green, litter-free community. And with clean water, clean air, no litter, as you can see here. I don't see any litter, I hope. And our mission statement is pretty self-evident. 2 keywords here are taking action. So it's really about getting people organized and getting out and doing things in their own communities. And to that end, we have 33 local chapters now across the state. You see shaded here in green. So if you don't see your town listed, feel free to contact me or go through our website and learn more about the benefits of having an organized group of people focusing on these issues of litter cleanup, waste reduction and recycling, beautification, and environmental education. And again, here's where you can follow us, our website, our Facebook page in particular. We're very active. We post all kinds of educational articles and content there every day. So I encourage you to follow us or join the Keep Mass Beautiful group on Facebook as well. I'll share this with Julie to share with you after this presentation as far as where you can go for more information on some of the programs I talked about. One thing I didn't mention was we have a petition on change.org/litterfree-mass. And what that is we are trying to get our state leaders, political leaders, to take some action on the roadside litter problem in our state. I mean, it's just horrendous out there if you drive along the major highways. And we are a grassroots organization. Volunteers are out cleaning up their local communities, but we can't put volunteers on Route 95 or 495. And our state, no one's really doing anything about it. It's just a very disorganized and ineffective program that we've got so far. And part of this is to focus on litter prevention. So to have like a statewide public service campaign to educate people, raise awareness about this, prevent the litter versus just focusing on cleaning it up. All right, so final thoughts here, just to summarize, bringing it down to that personal level I mentioned, things we can all do to help out with these issues, reduce the amount of trash that we create each day. The average American generates around 5 pounds a day. So some of those things I mentioned earlier would help you reduce that. Reuse whatever you can or donate it to someone else who can use it. Recycle as much as possible, but the tricky part is to do it correctly. So use that RecycleSmartMA website to help you with that. Refuse single-use plastic. So let those businesses know you want better choices and you value a clean environment. Teach your family and friends how to recycle correctly. So if you see someone in your household, whether it's your children or your grandparents or your roommates, let them know politely how to do it correctly. And then again, take action. So, join the mass litter cleanup crew, simply pick up litter when you see it, or join a local cleanup that may be happening this month or in May, or launch a local Keep Massachusetts Beautiful chapter. All right. We'll share this survey link with you tomorrow with the follow-up email that goes out. We appreciate any input you can give us on how to make this presentation better. And then finally, I will hand it off to Erin Victor of Mass Department of Environmental Protection, and she's going to go over a few more items for you. And Erin, here you go.
Yep, sorry, 1 second, Erin. Thank you so much, Neil. That was fabulous. Just want to let everybody know, thank you so much for all the great questions. After Erin finishes, we will go ahead with the question and answers part. And again, these presentations will be available for you as well. So thank you. And Erin, it's all yours. Thank you.
Great. Thanks. And great job, Neil. It's always wonderful to hear someone else talk about Recycle Smart, as I actually am the program lead at MassDEP on that program. So if you have questions about it, happy to answer them, but I think Neil did a great job covering why it's so important to know what you're putting in the bin. And so I just wanted to quickly follow up with a couple other resources that we have recently launched or have had around for a while here at MassDEP related to those first couple R's, the reuse, which we incorporate repair into as well. So Neil, if you can go to the next slide. We have pretty large goals here in the state in order for reducing the amount of waste that we generate. And so in our draft solid waste master plan that Neil had mentioned earlier, we have identified a goal for by 2030 to reduce the amount of unsent to landfill or incineration by to 5.1 million tons, which would be a 30% reduction, and then a 90% reduction by 2050. And what we have realized, I mean, we've always known this, but that hierarchy that Neil talked about, if you want to go to the next slide. Neil, thanks. You've seen this already. The idea is to go higher up the hierarchy and reducing and reusing, because we cannot reach those numbers, that reduction, with recycling, composting, and waste to energy alone. So we really want to encourage these first couple R's. And so we started a working group called the R&R Working Group, Reduce and Reuse. And it's an informal discussion, or it's a forum for discussion for the reuse regulations, policies and programs in Massachusetts. And we have been developing an action plan, which we hope to get the draft out this year, later this summer. And then we also have a network for people on listserv, like a listserv for people to share ideas as well. And so it's kind of, we're starting here. If you want to go to the next slide. This is an overview of what the way that we think about how the state agency MassDEP can actually assist in promoting reuse and repair across the state. So through financial incentives, technical assistance, and training and education, those are kind of like our pillars. And we work with K through 12 schools, municipal governments, nonprofit organizations, higher education, and for-profit organizations. And so I'm going to just briefly talk about the ones that the ways that we, or the programs that we have that I thought would be most relevant to everyone on this call. Next slide. The first is our microgrant program. I got a little funky, but it's relatively new. We launched it in 2019, and it provides up to $5,000 for a nonprofit or a business there's some eligible municipalities, but largely this is meant for nonprofit and businesses for innovative short-term projects that have to do with reuse. It's on a rolling basis. We evaluate them quarterly. It is open online, and it's a simple online application form. So if you go to the next slide, we have some examples of ones that we have done. And yes, that is Mark Hammond from NCIS. There's several bag share programs that we have helped fund, where they will use seed bags to make reusable bags, especially in communities where they've recently implemented plastic bag bans, in order to ensure that that didn't disproportionately impact anyone who didn't have access to a reusable bag. So they would make these, they would show workshops, talk about why it was important to use a reusable bag, and then hand these out in the community. And then we've also helped fund repair events at a makerspace, a loading dock for a furniture donation center that allowed them to process a whole lot more furniture, university surplus furniture program, reusable coffee cup programs. There's a number of things. So just if this has sparked any ideas of ways in your own organization or a nonprofit that you work with, or someone that you know of that they might be interested in kind of piloting some reuse programs in the state, we would love to hear from you. Next slide. The other part was, I mentioned technical assistance, and Recycling Works is a program that is administered through CET, the Center for Ecotechnology, but is funded by MassDEP. And they provide really great hands-on technical assistance, and they have a hotline, answer all questions for organizations that are looking for help with reducing their waste. So that could be help with addressing food waste. That could be help with recycling programs. That could be help with finding recycling programs for different some material like construction and demolition material. And it can even be reuse related, like doing reusable shipping pallets. And they're a really great resource. They have a bunch of material on their website. So I would recommend checking that out. Next slide. And then this is more, so we offer these programs for municipalities across the state. So we work with all the states across the Massachusetts in order to help incentivize and implement a number of what we consider best practice programs. And there's 4 that have to do with reuse, and they are swap shops, which is, well, I'll get into that in just a second. Zero waste days, repair events, and library of things and tool libraries. So next slide. So a swap shop, if you have not heard, is a location that's normally at a town's transfer station where people can drop off and exchange used items that are in working condition. So people have talked about finding a bunch of treasures at the different swap shops, but it's also a good place if you have, you know, your kid outgrew a set of skis, or you have, I don't know, too many books or something like that. This is a great place to drop it off if it's still something that could have more use, and other people can just pick it up for free and you can kind of shop while you're there. That is added to the one person's trash is another person's treasure. So next slide. We'll send this out with the link, but we have also mapped out where these swap shop locations exist in the state. And so you can find one near you, or you can also, if you're interested in seeing a swap shop in your community, but see that they're not on this map, encourage your municipality to apply or to start one up. We do have a grant funding that helps support these programs for municipalities. Next slide. Zero waste days. They've also been known as reuse rodeos, donation events, zero waste days. They have a bunch of different names. Essentially are a one-stop shop. So instead of having to take your materials to 4 different reuse organizations, you could take it, the community would organize an event a couple times a year where they have all those different organizations that accept different donations or recycle difficult to recycle things at one spot, so that you could come and bring all of it at one time, just to make it a little bit more convenient and promote and help these nonprofit organizations that rely on donated goods. Next slide. Repair events. These were happening a lot more throughout the state prior to COVID, but now they have moved and migrated online and will hopefully soon be back in person. But they are a really great opportunity for free hands-on training help with repairing items. So that, like, if you have something like a lamp that you still really want and you really like, but you just can't figure out how to fix it, they have these events recruit experts or, you know, tinkerers or people who enjoy fixing, and they'll work alongside you to help figure out what's going on with your item. And they'll have the tools there and will help make it possible. So the next slide. There is also now, what I mentioned, virtual repair events. So there's one on May 15th and June 19th, they're coming up, that if you wanted to sign up, you could give them a little heads up about what item you wanted to fix or items you wanted to fix, and they'll kind of put you in breakout groups with repair experts that could help you. And there's also a global fixer server that they just started, which is through the Fix It Clinic, which is 24/7 around the world repair, where essentially they can help connect you to someone anywhere in the world that can help you with repairing an item. So that's just a resource to know about. Next slide. And then lastly, the programs that we support for municipalities are library of things and tool libraries. So I would encourage you to check and see if your community has one of these, but essentially just as you would check out any book or CD or whatever it is from the library, you could also check out other items that you wouldn't necessarily want to store or purchase and own because you would only use it occasionally, but you would see value in using it for a specific project, say a sewing machine or a specific, like a game. Like you can see here, there's several games where there's things that you might not need to own, but you would like to use. And so then multiple people can use that same item without everyone owning that same item. And so the tool libraries are especially useful for, like, as we're approaching spring, doing a lot of your spring cleaning, you don't maybe need a rototill yourself, but you need to borrow one now. So it's a way to kind of have a community resource for sharing items. Next slide. And then we'll send this out too, but this is the link to the map of where all of the tool libraries and library things, at least that we know of in the state, exist. Next slide. And then we also offer training and information through the Green Team program for schools. And the one thing I wanted to highlight was if you work with a school or your kids go to a school that is using disposable trays, one of the things that we offer through MassDEP is grants for schools to switch back to installing dishwashers and reusable trays, which are they save the community a lot of money, better for the environment, better for the health of your kids who are eating off of styrofoam or compostable trays that could have PFAS in them. And yeah, the idea is just to move towards reuse, and we're trying to encourage that through helping municipalities, helping schools switch back to reusable dishwashers and trays. But then the Green Team also has really great resources for lessons and things you can do for reduce, reuse, and composting with schools. So it's a great resource to share with if you're your kid's teacher and they don't have a Green Team set up at your school, let them know. Next slide. Oh, I guess that's it. So I wanted to just lay those out, and I think at this point we're opening to questions.
Thank you, Erin. That was great. I love the library. I have a free library a couple houses up from me, but the free stuff, that is fantastic. So I'll be definitely looking at see if there's any near me. Those are great.
There's a great one in where I used to live in Brookline, and they'd have like all the different pans, like specialty pans for birthdays, to make a cake. It's like, you don't need that, cake that's shaped like a one.
Exactly, to go out and buy it.
Yeah. So.
Yes, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Yes, so I realized to everyone that we are getting close to 1 o'clock. So if you do need to jump off, this will be recorded and you can go back and view the recording. But with that, if I can have Sophia on and she can ask, we did get quite a few questions. So Neil and Erin, if you don't mind staying on for a little bit to answer some of these questions, I'll hand it over to Sophia.
Yeah, so we do have quite a few, and we do want to be respectful of everyone's time here. So I'm going to just kind of go through and just kind of pull out a few. And
okay, good.
Perhaps we can do like a follow-up of the answers to the questions that, the audience asked. So why can't fried foods or oily foods be composited?
Ooh, I'm going to defer to Erin on that one. Erin? Composting?
Yeah, so we had just on Tuesday done a composting 101, everything you want to know but we're afraid to ask presentation at MassDEP with our composting expert, Anne, and she would be the best person to ask that. I have a feeling it's just because the microbes the organisms can't break it down, but I would defer to her. And once we're going to be linking that resource, and we can share that with Sophia and the team if you want to learn more about the ins and outs of composting.
Okay. And so how do you actually get like a bin or a bucket or whatever so that you can, throw your waste foods?
Yeah, I would send that same thing. I would recommend that everybody watch that webinar because it does mention some of the grant programs that we've offered to communities to help provide those for residents. You can also just buy them, like the ones that you would collect scraps in at any Home Depot or, you know, Lowe's or something like that. And then there's just multiple different ways you can approach composting. So you could do backyard composting, you could do a worm bin composting. And so I'm gonna send people to, I'm not the composting expert, send people to Anne in that webinar to learn more about that.
Okay, thank you. What about paper towels? We were told that we cannot add tissues or paper towels to paper recycling in their community.
Yeah.
That's correct.
You want me to take that one, Aaron?
Sure.
Yeah, paper, towels, tissues cannot be recycled because it's just, the fibers are not enough that they can actually recycle them. So that should go in your trash.
Yeah. They're too short. Think of it as like different materials can be recycled over and over again. Like aluminum is really great. It can be recycled infinite number of times. But paper, every time you recycle it, it degrades a little bit. So they can make tissue paper, toilet paper, you know, whatever, out of office paper. But then that's like, it keeps getting shorter. The threads of paper keep getting shorter. So the fibers, they can't keep doing it over and over again.
Got it. Okay, and what about clear plastic bags that are specifically made for recycling? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, Aaron, you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
These are the bane of my existence, but no, they are pretty much a marketing ploy. No, there's only a couple neighborhoods in Boston that will actually pick up bags in recyclables, and they have a contract where they will open those bags and sort the material, but it's only because their streets are so narrow that they can't fit like a traditional bin. Any other time you put an item in a plastic recycling bag, or you know, something that's labeled as recycling, even if it's clear, it's just going to get sent to trash at the material recovery facility. The material recovery facility is going to say, we don't have the time and it's a hazard because we don't know exactly what's in there, and they will just send it to the residue pile. So if you want it to actually get recycled, put it in loose.
Okay.
We'll say, so like our city is, we are all paper bags. So I just use the paper bags to throw all my recyclings in, and then the whole paper bag goes in the recycling bin. So there's no plastic.
Yeah, I mean, we don't promote the paper bag because they want it loose because things could get stuck in there. But I mean, if you leave the paper bag open, it's most likely going to come tumbling out.
Exactly.
So what about, you know, pet waste?
Neil?
Not recyclable.
Not recyclable. Okay.
I mean, one of the things
compostable.
on the litter pet peeve list, I can't remember if it was on the list this time, but it's, you know, you see it everywhere with people who bag their dog's waste and then don't bother to throw it in a trash bin. There was a famous case in Newton of this one particular intersection where someone or some people were just tossing their dog poop bags into the sewer to the point where it clogged the entire system and caused, you know, like a flood. So, you know, that one's just basic human decency, clean up after your pet. If you're going to go through the trouble of bagging it, well, then finish the job and throw the bag away. So, so that's just one of those, I don't know. It's definitely not recyclable. I can tell you that.
Okay. All right. What about pizza boxes? Are they recyclable?
This is always a hot topic. Aaron, do you want to take this?
Oh, sure. I love talking about pizza boxes. So a lot of communities used to say no to pizza boxes. When we met with the material recovery facilities in the state, all the recycling facilities, they said, no, it's cardboard. We want it. We just don't want the pizza. We don't want the little plastic tray in there. We don't want the liner. We just want the box. And so they're like, if you can make that super clear, then yes, we want pizza boxes. And then that was followed up relatively recently with a study done by Westrock and the Paperboard Association, I'd have to look it up exactly who did the study, but they tested it with multiple different layers of grease, multiple different layers of cheese, and found that that material was indeed recycled. They could recover and make new product out of it. And so all those box manufacturing companies said, we want our pizza boxes back. We want this material back. It is especially right now, a very valuable stream. Cardboard is one of the most valuable things you can put into your recycling bin.
I'll just add to that. If you do have a box that is just, just for whatever reason, smothered with cheese or something, you can rip it in half and, recycle the top half if the bottom half just looks beyond, recovery. And the other thing, I was watching CNBC the other day, and they were doing this like recycling refresher story, but they were talking with someone out in the West Coast, I believe, about what's recyclable and what's not. And, keep in mind that our practices here in Mansfield may not be the same as they are in California or wherever, not Mansfield, Massachusetts. So like I was watching that article and they were saying that story, and they were saying pizza boxes are not recyclable. I was like, well, so if you're in Massachusetts and you're watching this, you're getting incorrect information. So we're setting the record straight here.
And that's important to remember. Like, you might also look at a lot of the box, like cartons, say that they're recyclable. They're not in Massachusetts unless you live in select communities in Western Massachusetts, because these are very regional. It's based off of the sorting facility, like what kind of equipment they have and what products they can actually sort, the markets. I mean, Neil talked about this. It has to do with available markets. And here in the Northeast, these are we don't have carton markets that are high enough profit for the material recovery facilities to decide to put in the labor and the machines to sort out that material. But with cardboard, with pizza boxes, they have found people who want that material. So
what I tell people, Erin, is if you're in Eastern Mass, coated cartons, so things like milk cartons and chicken stock, that kind of stuff, is not recyclable in your bin. But if your recycling goes to the Springfield facility out in Western Mass, it is, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they sort that by hand.
Right.
All right. So we are way beyond, and I just wanted to get one more question in, and it's about schools, children. What are we doing to promote this, and bring awareness to the school system?
Well, we have the Green Team program where we work with teachers in order to do some education in schools. And then I believe Neil has worked with schools as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say, this presentation, for anyone watching, you can schedule this in your own community if you like, if you go to our website and request us to deliver it. So we do deliver it. We delivered it last week to 150 students, fifth graders in Billerica, via Zoom. So we definitely would love to get some of these messages. We tailor it for younger audiences a bit, but we want to get these messages out to young people because they're the ones, who are going to be dealing with these problems longer than we will. So.
Right. Okay. Well, definitely appreciate all those that hung in there with us. Julie, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our presenters. I feel like I was a pretty good recycler, but I have learned a lot from both of you today. So thank you. Again, this has been recorded, so you will all have access to the recordings. If we missed any questions, we can put you in touch with Erin and Neil, and you can ask the questions to them directly. So thank you. And if you do have any questions, you can also reply to the follow-up email, and your transportation coordinator will get in touch with you. So with that, thank you again. Happy Earth Day. Have a great day, and everybody remember to recycle smart.
Thank you, Julie.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.